Welcome to this Vox Markets Q&A with Hummingbird Resources post the AGM, which was held on the 21st of June because of COVID, of course. People couldn't have it in person, but we're joined by Russell King, Chairman, Dan Betts, CEO, Tom Hill, CFO, and we have some questions submitted by investors. But before we get into those, I'm going to hand over to Russell for some opening remarks. Over to you, Russell.
Well, thanks very much, and welcome. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's great to be here on the Vox Markets channel. It's a great shame that for the second year we couldn't have an AGM in person. And what we've got is we've got a few questions from investors and we're going to do our absolute best to answer them this afternoon. The 2020 annual report, which I'm sure you've read, gives an excellent summary of the company's performance and prospects, but I just make a couple of comments which I think put it all into some sort of perspective. 2020 was an extraordinary year for many reasons, and we were hugely concerned about our ability to navigate through the COVID epidemic at the start of the year. And although the year could have gone better operationally, I think it's worth noting that our staff performed amazingly well in unprecedented circumstances, many of them actually being effectively locked into the site and not being able to leave. We continued to repay debt. We created a solution for Dugbe via the earn-in with Pasofino, and we acquired Kourousa in Guinea, which is a fantastic asset for the future. So sitting here today, Hummingbird is very much a growth platform, and we continue to focus on that. We're focused on extending our mine life, acquiring new assets such as Kourousa, and building a more capable team. This year we've appointed a COO, a Chief Strategy and ESG Officer, and many other people to make the Hummingbird team even stronger than it already was. And lastly, and very importantly, we continue to be very passionate about ESG. We've joined the World Gold Council. We're implementing their responsible gold mining principles, and safety remains at the top of our list of priorities. So that's an introduction from me. Justin, back to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start off with the first question then. It's regarding Kourousa, and it's from a release on the 25th of May. And it says, relating to the issuing of shares in Kourousa being delayed, can you give some details on this, more details on why the delay and when can you expect this to be completed?
Yes, I'll be happy to, Justin. It's very straightforward. Before we can issue the shares, we need the vendor to confirm the allocations and registration details of the shares. Once we get those, the shares will be issued in a matter of days.
Understood. Okay, let's stay with Kourousa. Next question is on progress and update expectations on the project now the mining licenses have been successfully granted.
Yeah, so I'll handle that one, Justin, and thanks for having us on again. You're right, having been awarded the mining license is a material step forward in our ability to develop the Kourousa project. And at the moment, the team is busy finalising the CapEx number and all the pre-production works, key contracts, HR issues in country with the government, and of course, finalising potential financing arrangements. So as soon as the team has finished all these issues, we are looking to keep the market updated and announce the numbers on the project and look forward to commencing the project soon. But what I would say is when we bought the project, we bought it because of the amazing grade, the outstanding exploration potential, and what looked to be a low CapEx, very high return on your capital investment project, and those still look to be the case. You know, the numbers we announced 6 months ago when we bought the project still look to be the ballpark numbers that we are looking at with Kourousa, and we are very excited about its ability to double our production, generate a lot of free cash early in the mine life, and extend through exploration what looks to be a really very exciting high-grade gold province.
Excellent stuff. Okay, next question is on investments. Cora Gold, the investment at a TR1 release in June showing the company disposed of its remaining holdings. Can you give more details on why this was disposed of, consideration received, and what the proceeds are going to be used for?
Thank you, Justin. I'm glad you asked that question. But our investment in Cora Gold, which we've had for a number of years after we co-founded the company, it became increasingly non-core. We're holding approximately 10%. We couldn't see any obvious synergies between their projects and ours. And so when the opportunity came to dispose of the shares at about approximately market price, we took that opportunity. And that realised about $2.5 million, which we look forward to putting towards our development projects, especially Kourousa.
Understood. Okay.
Justin, if I could just chip in a little bit to add to that. I think it's important to remember where Cora came from. Cora was the result of exploration licenses that we acquired from Goldfields when we acquired the Yanfolila project. And we would have lost those licenses and we hadn't got the bandwidth or the money to develop them. So we founded Cora Gold together with the Quirk family to unlock that value. And whilst we kept our options open, that it may have been a project that provided operational synergy with Yanfolila, as it develops and the grade profile of their Keystone project looks to be something that couldn't be truckable to our site, as Tom says, it becomes non-core to us. We're not an investment company. So it's better to realize that investment and that profit that we've made from what I think was a good deal for Hummingbird shareholders, creating something from nothing, and use those proceeds in extending the mine life at Yanfolila and Kourousa through exploration, where we can create material NPV value.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, next question. Management incentives 2021, the 2020 annual report and accounts state the long-term incentive plan is intended to better align participants with shareholders to create shareholder value over the medium to long term. How does the board align this with delivering and creating shareholder value for all shareholders?
Absolutely. It's a key focus of the board. It's one of our prime responsibilities is to create, obviously, value for shareholders. And absolutely central to that is making sure that the management incentives are so aligned. So a bit of history, since the formation of Hummingbird, we had a very simple scheme. You'll see it in the annual report. It's called the Hippo scheme. And essentially, it was a merger, a combination of short-term and long-term incentives. But it was largely based on internal measures. And although those internal performance measures ultimately flow through to shareholder value, it wasn't quite as direct a sort of link as we actually would have liked. And so we decided that we needed to change. We did a few things. Firstly, we formed a REMCO. So we have a couple of individuals who focus on this topic on a regular basis and feedback to the board. Secondly, we hired a well-known consultant to give us advice on what was custom and practice in the market and what best practice looked like. And then we developed a new policy, which is referred to in the annual report and has been approved. I mean, basically, we've now got two things. We've got a short-term bonus, which is paid in installments, but it is half on the company performance, which is largely those internal measures like, cost, ounces produced, safety, those sorts of things, and half on personal performance. And that is something that we will review every year. And we, as I say, we pay out in installments, though, over a few years. And then the second thing, which is probably most important in terms of creating that medium to long-term alignment, is the long-term incentive scheme. There, it's basically in three parts. We've got 1/3, which is based on absolute compound annual TSR growth, which means the guys, to get anything on that part, have got to grow TSR on an absolute basis by a minimum of 8% per annum. And to max out, they've got to grow it at 18% per annum. So these are big numbers that they've got to actually deliver. And that's 1/3 of the long-term incentive. Another third is based on relative TSR. So this is against the S&P Global Commodity Gold Producers Index. And there they've got to either be at parity with that, which is obviously, once again, a big deal, or to max out, they've got to be 5% ahead of that index. And then the final third is restricted stock. Now on these, there are no performance conditions. People have got to continue to be employed by us during that process. We've discounted those to take into account the fact there are no performance conditions. And those are really to make sure we retain our very talented management through the process, and which is also very important to create shareholder value. And I should add, actually, this new scheme is no more valuable than the scheme it's replaced. We've just realigned it and targeted it much more around TSR.
Okay, understood. Okay, and this question is on your Dugbe project in Liberia. Annual accounts note the JV progress with the Pasofina team. Can you give more details on your expectations of progress in 2021 for this project and how you interact with the Pasofina team?
I'll take that first off, and then anybody else can chip in. I mean, so since the annual report was published, Pasofino have just released a PEA on the project, which showed what I believe to be extremely encouraging economics. At today's gold price, it shows a pre-tax NPV of over $1 billion, which is a huge number. And as we've always said, Dugbe is a huge project. But the thing that excites me most about it still is the exploration potential there. And Pasofino is still working through the conditions to meet its earning, which means it needs to complete a DFS, not a PEA, and it needs to continue with its exploration work. So over the next period of time, we should see more news flow coming on exploration results as that PEA is refined to a DFS. I should say that there have been a couple of comments about the CapEx from our PEA that we announced almost 8 years ago now in 2013. The CapEx was more like $220 million, and people are saying, well, why is the CapEx now $390 million? That's not a realistic comparison. The project imagined by Pasofino is much bigger. It's a 5 million ton per year plant, and as a result, gold out will be much bigger as well. I think it's averaging nearly 190,000 ounces a year for a 14 or 15 year mine life, and peak gold production is over 200,000 ounces a year. So the numbers are big. It's a big scale project, but importantly, payback is under 3 years and the AISC is under $900 an ounce. So for me, it's not for me to comment on where value lies in our share price, but it seems clear to me that not much value is ascribed to the Dugbe project. And that's because when we moved to Yanfolila and our performance has been strained over the last period of time, the market is watching our performance at Yanfolila very, very closely. And that's fair enough. But I think the value Hummingbird has in the Dugbe project, when you've got $1 billion NPV, robust studies that have gone into that. I mean, it's a 400-page report they've produced. To me, this is, I wouldn't say vindication of what we've always believed, but proof that we have a hugely valuable project here with massive exploration upside. And you also have the Kourousa project that we're about to bring online. So, I'm slightly going off beat on the Pasofino question, but it's part of a bigger picture that Hummingbird is more than just the mine at Yanfolila. And I think this PEA and our JV with Pasofino is really showcasing that, and we just need to keep doing the work.
Yeah. Do you know what, Dan, I can hear your passion there and the belief in those projects. I really can. So it's nice to hear that. But guys, that's it for the questions. But I'll leave you to cover off anything we haven't covered off and maybe give a summary. Russell, Dan, anything?
Yeah, I mean, let me just sort of give a few of my reflections on Hummingbird over the years. This is the first time I've spoken to shareholders on this medium. I've been the chairman for quite a long time and worked with Dan and Tom and the team for all the way through that, and we've been through some tough times. We've always come good, and what I would say is the first thing I'd comment on this is a team with immensely strong values. We always strive to do the right thing, whether it be by our communities, by our staff, by our shareholders. We know which way north is, and we really focus on doing the right thing, which is tremendously important, particularly when you're working in places like Africa. There are challenges there, and we always recognize those and act properly. Secondly, this is a team that is hugely committed. It's very tenacious, it's very resilient, and it's very experienced. And even during the COVID period, we've continued to produce, we've continued to pay down debt, we've come up with an excellent solution for Dugbe, and we've acquired a great asset in Kourousa. And yes, we know we've got to deliver. Yes, we know we've got to improve the operational predictability of Yanfolila. And we've also taken steps to do that, particularly in bringing in a new COO. So I think, this is a team that, through the years I've worked with them, I've always been impressed by what they've been able to do. And I'm sitting here thinking the future looks pretty good for this team.
Excellent stuff. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. You do certainly seem to be making progress in multi-jurisdictions there. So, as we often know, the investor community play a catch-up games. But it's good for you to come on. Russell, Dan, Tom, hopefully we'll catch up in the not-too-distant future. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.